Well, welcome. Today, as you're all aware, is a day of remembrance. Today we stop and remember men and women who have made an incredible sacrifice many years ago. But even though it was many years ago, the sacrifice they made still, all these years later, make a difference in our lives. I think this is the reason Anzac Day is becoming a bigger and bigger celebration in Australia. Today we remember those men and women who answered the call to go to war and to fight for our country. So in a way, they were all signing up to lay down their lives. Their very action has made a difference in our lives today. What difference? Our freedom. Regardless of your view on war, we must recognise that we have freedom today as a result of their sacrifice. Do you know, in life, you'll always have things that stick in your mind. You'll always see something and you'll remember that to the day you die. Well, I have one such incident, especially that involving war. I remember when the US Army caught Saddam Hussein. It's one image I'll never forget was at the press conference. This room was full of Iraqi people, press reporters and stuff like that. A guy in a suit, a uniform, he got up and he stood behind a podium a bit like this one. He looked at him, and I don't know if you saw this, but these were his words. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. At that, there was an absolute ballistic. People went ballistic. They were cheering, they were crying. People were standing up, reporters saying, I've got nothing to ask you, I just want to say thank you. One after the other got up and just said, thank you, thank you. The relief and expression I saw on those people made me realise the respect I should have towards those Anzacs that went to war. I remember a time before that, it wasn't much before that. Michelle and I were at a meals at a friend's house. She worked with us, this is Eddie. She worked with us at camp. She had an Iraqi family over visiting. And this family had two young girls, roughly the same age as Samantha and Zoe. And we decided to get them dancing. These girls would not dance. They stood there, we put music on, we tried everything. And then Mum said something to them. It wasn't in English. And the girls just jumped up and smiled and danced. What did she say? Dance or you're grounded? So we asked them, we said, what did you say? We said, I told them it's okay, it's safe, there's no Taliban here. And I thought, holy heck, here are two girls they were fearful, they were in another country, they were still that scared to dance in someone else's home. But once you were told there was freedom, there was no Taliban, they went for it. And so the Anzac we remember today brought the same kind of freedom as the US did to the Iraqis. How? They answered the call. You know, that for me is one of the positive things I see about Anzac Day. Do you know, I could go to most places today and do that exact same intro. And most people would know it, most people would understand it, and most people would celebrate it. As I said, I think Anzac Day is a tradition in our country that is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. But do you know, for me, there's a negative around today. I tend not to go to Anzac Day services and stuff like that. And you may think, why? Well, I can't help but think, if ever there was a chance or an opportunity to grasp the gospel of God, to grasp the good news of God, then surely Anzac Day is the perfect day. For me, there is no better day on our calendar to help people understand the gospel than Anzac Day. Sorry to sound a bit sacrilegious, but for me, I would say Anzac Day is even a better day to help people understand the gospel than Easter or Christmas. Why do I say that? Because they are celebrating the exact same thing. The parallels, what they do, are almost identical. But as I said, for me, there's a negative around this. As I said before, you could talk about the sacrifice of Anzacs, you could go to anyone and tell them about it, and it's welcomed and celebrated. More and more people are getting on board with it. But when we talk about the sacrifice of Jesus, it is rejected, it is denied, it is slammed, and it is condemned. More than that, more and more people are disregarding it. Now, some may say, Garth, that's just normal. That's just the way the world's view is. Even so, I don't know why, but that really bugs me. It really bugs me. More than that, it actually hurts me. I don't know if you're a sports fan, but in every sport this weekend, they do the Anzac Day thing. Imagine if Neville went to every event and read out Ephesians 1. Exactly the same message. What would happen? That's what bugs me. We have the gospel in our eyes, and yet people reject it. Flip it around and say about Anzacs, and people love it and accept it. Please, in no way I'm saying I'm against the Anzacs. What I'm saying is it just saddens me because I see there's double standards. So today I want to focus and remind you of our great Anzac, our great soldier that went to war all those years ago for us. What things should we remember about him? Well, the first one I want to read to you is from 1 John 3:16. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. I want to paint a picture for you, a scenario for you that I'm sure if you've had little children or ever been around little children, you would have seen this scenario a dozen times. It goes like this. A child gets a new toy, and it's quite a special toy. Let's say for this story, it's a young boy and he gets given a new truck. Now, what tends to happen when a child gets a new toy? They love it and they play with it quite a lot. Well, this boy did exactly that. He loved this new truck so much that he played with it till he just about wore all the paint off it. Then one day, it's sitting on the coffee table. No one's playing with it or touching it. Then come along's the enemy, the little sister. She walks up to the table, reaches out her little hands to grab that well-worn truck. What happens next? As I said, all of you have been in this situation. So you know, as she goes to grab this truck, it is snatched away from her by the gorilla of the family, her older brother. He doesn't want to part with something so important. So he quite loudly lets her know, don't touch that, that's my truck. Now, for us as parents, we've seen this unfold many times. What's our most common response in this situation? Well, we look to the older child and we say, hey, you weren't using it. Let her play with it. And as you know, the most common comment we get back is, oh, of course, I'm sorry. You're right, Mum. Here you go, sis. Have fun. Enjoy it. Now, hopefully, I'm glad you laughed because you must be thinking, you're kidding. We never get that response. We get, no, the truck is mine. He doesn't want to give it up for nothing. And the more you pressure it to give him and make him share the truck, the more he grips it tighter and he'll hold on to it tighter. You try to take it away, but you know you can't win without breaking his arm, and you don't want to do that. And so you get into the argument, but eventually you win. And he gives the truck to his sister. And she says, fine, here, have it. And most times he'll throw it on the ground at her feet. Why am I telling you this story? Because it's a story of someone giving. It's a good example or illustration of someone giving grudgingly. And yes, we've all been there, not only watching it, but doing it ourselves. Even though we are no longer little children, we've probably still been in a situation of giving grudgingly much more recently than we'd like to admit. A time when we've had to give something that we didn't really want to give. Compare that. Have you ever given something to someone that you were 100% happy to give? Giving willingly? I remember Michelle's and my engagement was a spur of the moment thing. I didn't plan anything. I got up and we went on a picnic and I thought, oh, maybe this is a good day to ask her to marry me. So I did. And so then we went shopping for engagement rings. And I remember the one she picked and she said, I want that one. And I think it was $700. And I only had about $900 in the bank. But I tell you, I bolted because the bank was across the road. This was at Marion. And I bolted across the bank and I withdrew $700. Oh, best money I've ever withdrawn in my life. And I went and I gave the ring. So you understand there's a big difference between giving grudgingly and giving willingly. There's a big difference in your attitude. There's a big difference in how you see the person you are giving to. I'm quite sure your thoughts and feelings about giving to someone grudgingly are not the same as your thoughts and feelings when you gave to someone willingly. Well, for me, this may be one of the biggest difference between remembering the Anzacs and remembering Jesus. What do I mean? As you remember the Anzacs today, or if you go to service today, you will probably hear how they willingly died for us in the fight. I can't say to you that every one of them was willingly to die. In fact, I can't help but think maybe there was one or two that went grudgingly. They didn't want to die. And so I can't say they willingly did it. But I can with Jesus. Jesus laid down his life. He was not forced. He laid it down. I made a comment last week that love is the spiritual motivation God uses to relate to us. Well, this is how we know what God's love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life. 100%. Another thing we learn about Jesus laying down his life comes from Romans chapter 5, verses 6. You see, just at the right time when you were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly. Very rarely will anyone die for a righteous man, though for a good man, someone may possibly dare to die. But God demonstrates his love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Do you know, one thing I love about Deb's sermons is I'm a visual learner, and I love when demonstrations are done or when props are used. I remember at school, I can still remember some of the demonstrations that our teachers did, and I used to love it. Because why do they do it? What's the point? Well, it's more than just getting a message across. It allows people to actually see and experience the lesson. It actually gets them drawn in. Well, Jesus' death on the cross is a demonstration for everyone. Jesus' death on the cross demonstrates a message. Jesus' death on a cross is a way for all people to see and experience a lesson. What lesson? Well, this verse tells us two things about his death. The first thing is this: the timing was perfect. We have a God who had everything worked out. And it says just at the right time. God's timing is perfect. God sent his son to die for us just at the right time. Do you know, I often think, why doesn't he do it now? Wouldn't it be much better to do it now in this age of technology and so many people don't even believe in him? Imagine if he come back now and did that. But no, not God's time, God's time. The second thing we learn is our position at the time this happened. Even though you weren't alive, you're still in this. Our position is this: you were sinners. You were enemies. What do you like at doing favours for people? Do you like doing favours for people? Do you know most people don't mind doing favours for people? I don't mind. But let me tell you, it's easy for me to do a favour for those I like, but it's harder for me to do a favour for those I don't like. But that's not the message here. God loved and saved us when we were his enemies. I love the words in this verse. It says, God's own love. For those of you that know me, I am passionate about ownership. I want people to own their actions, their responsibilities. I hate living in a world where we can just pass it on and blame someone else. Well, this demonstration shows us God is owning something. It says God's own love. He is owning the whole situation. Do you know, I went to Bible study at Deb's place the other night and I learned something new. I saw something there that I'd never seen before, something that I've actually been wrong in for many, many times. Do you know, so often I've talked to people and I've said the Bible says that we should never lose the joy of my salvation. Don't ever lose the joy of my salvation. But something stuck out at me that night. I was wrong. Always have been wrong, but no longer will be wrong. Because I saw something on Wednesday night, because that was one of the verses that were laid out on the floor. David never says, restore in me the joy of my salvation. Do you know what he says? Restore in me the joy of your salvation. And so I Googled, I went to my computer and said, surely somewhere in there it's got to say joy of my salvation. It doesn't. It says the joy of your salvation. Salvation is all God. It comes out of God's own love for us. We see it and understand it by the passage that Neville read out before in Ephesians 1. That's the plan, and that's everything. And the final verse I want to focus on today, another one you'll know, Romans 8, 1-2. Therefore, there is now no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus, because through Christ Jesus, the law of the Spirit of life has set me free from the law of sin and death. Galatians 5:1, it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by the yoke of slavery. These verses talk about freedom. Do you know, for me, freedom's a funny thing. What is freedom? What is true freedom? I mean, we live in a world now that is controlled by COVID. I read an interesting article when it first came out about you cannot visit a nursing home without having a flu shot. And I read the article to Michelle. See, I hate people that don't own stuff. But anyway, this guy was saying, I want to start off by saying I'm 100% happy to get a flu shot, but I'm not, because I'm being told to get a flu shot. What right do they have to tell me that I can't go and visit my mother without getting a flu shot? Now, please understand, I am 100% happy to get a flu shot, but I'm not going to get a flu shot. They have no right to tell me that I should go and get a flu shot, or I can't see my mother because I haven't got a flu shot. Now, please understand, I don't mind getting a flu shot. Far out, I just wanted to... His whole point was that's not right. Do you know, people have a difficulty in being told what to do. They think once we've been told what to do, we've lost our freedom. We have Perth in lockdown at the moment. We have people that can't come home at the moment. So has COVID restrictions taken away the freedom of our country? Are we still a free country? What about these Anzacs that died for our country? Is that now null and void because we're no longer a free country? Or are we still free people in a free country? Again, what is true freedom? People think that they are free when they're not following God. People think that they're free when they can do what they want, when they want, whenever they want. But according to Paul, that's not freedom. In fact, these people are trapped. They're slaves. And he says, guys, let us never, ever put ourselves under that type of slavery again. Let's never go back there. I have a children's story that I do in regards to freedom. And it's this. It's about a train. I don't think there are many more powerful things. Probably a plane is more powerful than a train. Is that right or not? I don't know. But, you know, if it's a car or a train, the train's going to win every time. There's nothing more powerful around our world than trains, I think. But imagine if one day a train got bored. Train's going along the track and it's going into the hills and it sees the beach over there and thinks, stuff theirs. I've had enough of this track. I want to go over there. You know, I'm going to go and explore. And so it gets off the track. You ever seen a train off a track? How far does it go? Can't go anywhere. It is stuff. It is bog. It cannot go anywhere. That train has an incredible power. That train has incredible strength. That train has incredible ability. Where? On the track. Take it off the track and it loses everything. Everything. Has no power. So the freedom that it has is only on that track. Well, that is true. The only place we find true freedom is in the life of Jesus. The only place we find true freedom is by following him and, yes, obeying what he wants. So if you're going to go from here over to the service, then you'll have a chance to remember how our Anzacs went to war and fight for our country. And as a country, we still live in that freedom today. Jesus Christ went to the cross to give us freedom of God, and yes, we still live in that freedom today. Now, I want to be a little bit confronting. I'm not sure if you are, but if you're sitting here this morning, do you have the thought, Garth's only preaching the gospel. He's only talking about the cross. We all know this. Well, as I said, I think today is a perfect day for us Christians to remember about our soldier Jesus. I'm not sure if you've ever seen one, but we never have. But when Michelle's mum was doing a clean out, she sent us this. You won't be able to see it, but it's got Michelle's grandfather's father's name on it, Frank James. And it says on it, he died for freedom and honour. He died in the war. Anyone that died in the war, their family was given one of these with a stand on it. Do you think it went in a drawer? Do you think they got it and hid it and never touched it again? Now, could be wrong, but I don't think so. I think it would have sat somewhere prominent in a house so that every day they could look at it. Every day they could see it. Every day they could be remembered. And if you went to their house and said, what's that? Do you think they'd say, oh, don't talk about that, please? I think they would tell you with joy what that's all about. Well, Jesus has left us so much more by dying than a medal. And it's all what Neville read out before in Ephesians 1. Ephesians 1 spells it out. Go home and read Ephesians 1 if you want to be encouraged. So often we can live in that freedom, but we take it for granted. We've lost the true excitement our salvation should bring. I hope that you're not sitting here today thinking he's just preaching the gospel. I hope by preaching the gospel, you're flaming bursting with excitement. Sure, you could say we love hearing the story about the gospel before, but we're more mature now. We've moved on. We need meat. We need to grow. We know the story inside and out. We've heard it many times. Well, let me encourage you. You've received more than a medal. The families, I think, would talk about these to the nth degree. So should we. Let me encourage you, never lose the excitement of the truth of the fact that this amazing grace, how sweet the sound, that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see.